K9 dog locks eyes with teacher, what a girl. Reveals, shocks all. It was Career Heroes Day at Meadowbrook Elementary, and the school buzzed with excitement. Students wore firefighter hats and police stickers. Colorful posters lined the halls. The cafeteria even served cupcakes shaped like stars. Officer Drew Halden, wearing his clean blue uniform, stepped out of his SUV and opened the back door. Valor, his retired K9 partner, hopped out carefully. The old Belgian Malinois wasn't as fast as he once was, but his eyes were sharp, his ears twitched, nose sniffing the warm spring air. Drew had brought Valor to dozens of schools for safety talks. Kids always loved meeting a real police dog. He thought today would be no different. Principal Dawson greeted him with a smile. "We're glad to have you here, Officer Halden," she said. "The kids can't wait to meet Valor." "Thanks for having us," Drew replied. He patted Valor's head. "He's excited too. Right, buddy?" Valor didn't wag his tail like he normally did. Instead, he stared toward the school building, his body tense. Drew noticed, but brushed it off. Maybe the crowd was overwhelming. Inside the gym, students sat cross-legged on the floor. Teachers stood nearby, smiling and clapping. One teacher in particular stood out. Miss Sloan, the new art teacher, wore a bright yellow blouse and painted earrings shaped like rainbows. She laughed easily and gave high fives to her students. Her classroom was known as the happiest room in the school. "Everyone, this is Officer Halden and his partner, Valor," Principal Dawson announced. As Drew spoke about safety, Valor sat quietly beside him. But the moment they stepped into Miss Sloan's classroom for the smaller group talk, everything changed. Valor froze in the doorway. His ears shot up, his tail stiffened, his nose twitched fast. Then, without warning, he let out a sharp bark that echoed off the walls. Some of the kids jumped. A few giggled, thinking he was playing. But Drew's stomach dropped. Valor never barked indoors. Not like that. "Whoa, easy," Drew said gently, tugging the leash. But Valor didn't back down. He took 2 slow steps forward, staring straight at Miss Sloan. His growl started low, rising like a slow engine. His eyes locked onto her, body stiff, ready. Miss Sloan blinked, surprised. "Oh my! Did I do something wrong?" she said with a nervous laugh. "I don't think so," Drew replied. "He's usually calm. Maybe he smells something?" She reached into her cardigan pocket. "Just a granola bar. Nothing else, I swear." Drew tried to lead Valor away, but the dog resisted. His growls grew deeper. One of the girls in the back began to cry. Miss Sloan backed up slowly, hands raised. "I think maybe we should do this another time," she said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Drew nodded. "Yeah, maybe so." He gently led Valor out, though the dog kept glancing back, still growling under his breath. At lunch, the teachers chatted in the faculty lounge. "Maybe the dog's just old," Vice Principal Graves said with a shrug. "Could be getting confused." "Dogs like him don't just act out," said Miss Peters, the nurse, "especially ones with training." That wasn't confusing. That was something else. Drew sat quietly at the edge of the room, drinking cold coffee from a paper cup. Valor lay near the window, eyes still alert, staring into the hallway. Drew trusted Valor more than most people. The dog had once pulled him out of a collapsed building, saved him from a hidden gunman. He'd never barked at anyone without cause. That evening, Drew called his old captain. "I know this sounds strange," Drew said. But Valor reacted like he saw something bad in that classroom. He was locked onto that art teacher. "Miss Sloan?" the captain asked. "Yeah, something about her doesn't sit right with him." "Follow up quietly," the captain said after a pause, "and keep Valor close." Drew hung up and looked over at his partner, who was lying calmly but still watching the front door like a soldier on duty. Something wasn't right. Valor had felt it, and Drew was starting to believe it too.
The next morning, Officer Drew Halden returned to Meadowbrook Elementary. This time, he said it was for a second K9 demonstration, but really, he had another reason. Valor had acted too strangely the day before. Something in his gut told him not to let it go. Miss Sloan greeted Drew in the hallway with a bright smile. "Back again?" she said, handing out smiley stickers to kids walking past. Just thought we'd do a little follow-up visit, Drew said casually. She nodded and led him to her classroom. The walls were covered in colourful art and the windows let in warm sunlight. On the surface, it was the happiest room in the school, but Vala didn't relax. As soon as they walked in, he scanned the room with sharp eyes. This time, he didn't bark or growl. He moved slowly between the desks, sniffing the air. Then, without warning, he stopped in front of a quiet girl in the back row. It was Elsie Tran. She wore a purple hoodie and had her hair in a loose braid. She didn't say a word as Vala sniffed her backpack. Then the dog froze. He let out one short bark. The whole room went silent. Miss Sloane's smile twitched. "Oh dear, what's gotten into him now?" Drew knelt down beside Elsie. "Sweetheart," he said gently, "can I take a quick look in your bag? You're not in trouble. I just want to make sure everything's okay." Elsie nodded slowly. Her hands shook as she handed over her backpack. Drew opened it carefully. He saw a pencil case, a notebook, and a Hello Kitty folder. But then, something slid under his fingers, small, cold, and hidden beneath the lining. He pulled it out. It was the cap of a used syringe. Near it was a small piece of cloth that smelled sweet, artificial, like chemicals. Drew had seen this before. It was something bad, something used to hurt or control people. He looked up at Elsie. Her face was pale. "Who gave you this?" he asked softly. She looked down and whispered, "She told me to carry it. Miss Sloane. She said if I didn't, something bad would happen to my dad." Gasps filled the room. Miss Sloane stepped back, her face draining of color. "That's ridiculous," she said, laughing nervously. "Why would I ever?" Vala barked again, sharp and deep. He moved between Miss Sloane and the door, blocking her path. His growl was low but serious. "Don't move," Drew said. "Someone call security, now." The principal rushed in seconds later, wide-eyed and confused. Drew held up the cloth and syringe cap. "We found these in Elsie's backpack, and the child says her teacher gave them to her." The principal turned to Miss Sloane. "Is that true?" Miss Sloane didn't answer. She just raised her hands and tried to stay calm, but her smile was gone. The mask she had worn for months had slipped off. 2 school staff members waited in the hallway. One had already called the on-site police deputy. Within minutes, Miss Sloane was quietly led away in handcuffs. Drew had asked the deputy not to read her rights in front of the kids. "They've been through enough," he said. That afternoon, Drew sat with Elsie and her mother in the school office. Elsie's mom had come straight from work, eyes full of fear and confusion. "I don't understand," she said. "Why would a teacher give my daughter something like that?" "We don't have all the answers yet," Drew said. "But based on what we found, she was likely trying to scare or control Elsie. This kind of thing is sometimes used to prepare a child for something worse." He didn't want to say the word trafficking, but the mom understood. She covered her mouth, her hands shaking. "I trusted this school," she whispered. "You still can," Drew said, "because Vala saw what no one else did." That night, as Drew poured food into Vala's bowl, he sat down next to him on the kitchen floor. "You did good, buddy," he said. "You knew something was wrong from the start. You always know." Vala didn't bark. He just laid his head on Drew's knee, quiet and alert. Something told Drew this wasn't over. Not yet. The next morning, Officer Drew Holden drove to the sheriff's station, Vala riding in the back seat. The sun hadn't come up yet, and the streets were quiet. But inside Drew's mind, everything was racing. Miss Sloane, whose real name was Mallory Breen, had been using a fake identity. She had worked at 2 other schools before Meadowbrook. In both places, strange things had happened to students, but no one had put the pieces together. Until now. The FBI was involved. They had found something worse. Mallory wasn't working alone. She had been part of a group that moved from town to town, targeting young children. The person running everything was a woman known only as Aunt Bly. They had no photo, no address, only a voice from a wiretap. "She's smart," said Agent Morales, the lead investigator. "She doesn't leave a trail, but she made one mistake." He played an audio clip. A woman's voice spoke in a soft, southern drawl. "Get rid of everything. We've been sniffed out. That dog is ruining everything." Drew felt a chill. She meant Vala. She knew who he was. Agent Morales showed them a name, Darla West, a part-time speech therapist working at a small school in Dahlia Grove, Kentucky, a tiny town 2 hours away. She had just been hired in February. The voice on the call matched hers. "This could be her," Morales said. "It's our best chance." By sunrise, Drew was behind the wheel again. Valor sat alert in the passenger seat, watching the road. Dahlia Grove was peaceful. Small shops, wide fields, and old churches lined the roads. It looked safe, too safe. Trouble, Drew thought, doesn't always wear a mask. Sometimes it wears a warm smile. They pulled up outside Dahlia Grove Elementary. Sheriff Dean Mitaf met them out front. He wore jeans and a badge on his belt. "We don't get much trouble here," he said, sipping coffee. "You sure you've got the right person?" "We'll find out soon enough," Drew said. He and Valor walked through the front doors. The hallways were full of artwork and laughter. Teachers smiled as they passed by, but Valor kept walking, nose low, ears high. Outside room 112, labeled Speech Services Ms. Darla West, Valor stopped. He didn't bark yet, but his body tensed. He let out a low, deep growl. Drew knocked twice. "Come in," called a cheerful voice. Inside, a woman sat at her desk. She had silver hair, glasses, and a gentle smile. "You must be the officer the sheriff told me about," she said. "I'm Miss Darla." Valor growled again, louder now. He stood between Drew and the woman, body firm. Drew scanned the room. On the shelf were books on speech and trauma, but one book caught his eye. Broken Trust, Inside the Mind of a Predator. The library sticker was scratched, but Drew saw part of the name. Davidson Correctional Facility. That was a prison. "Miss Darla?" Drew asked calmly. "How long have you worked here?" "Since February," she replied. "Small towns don't get many full-time specialists." "And before that?" "I moved around a lot. My husband was in the military," she said, "always on the go." "And where is he now?" She paused. "Deployed, overseas." Drew didn't believe her. He stepped closer to her desk. That's when she reached into the top drawer. Valor barked sharply. Drew pulled out his sidearm. "Hands where I can see them." She froze. Drew rushed forward, opened the drawer, and found a burner phone and a folder. Inside were photos of children, names, notes. One photo stood out, a girl named Maya Gibson, age 8. She had asthma and lived with her grandmother. Drew's hands clenched. "You won't stop it," the woman said quietly, "even if you stop me." He placed handcuffs on her wrists. "You said the dog would ruin everything," he whispered. "Turns out you were right." As officers led her away, Drew knelt down and looked at Valor. "You knew, just like last time." Later that day, Maya's grandmother came to the school. She hugged Maya tightly, tears in her eyes. The little girl ran up to Valor and hugged his neck. "She never told me anything," her grandmother whispered. "Just said her teacher smelled like roses," and made her feel small. "She won't come near her again," Drew promised. That night back at home, Drew fed Valor and scratched behind his ears. "Every time I think it's over," he said softly, "you show me it's not." Valor didn't bark. He just rested his head on Drew's leg, calm and watchful, because he knew evil wasn't finished yet. Margaret Winslow, also known as Aunt Bly, was flown to a federal holding center under heavy guard. The woman who had tricked schools and targeted children for years was finally behind bars. She didn't struggle, she didn't cry. She just sat with a blank face, like it didn't matter. But it did. Officer Drew Holden stood outside Dahlia Grove Elementary with Valor. The air was warm, and the sound of kids playing on the playground filled the air again. Things felt normal, almost. Maya Gibson, the little girl who had been targeted, was safe. She now walked to school hand in hand with her grandmother, who kept her close at all times. Every morning, Maya stopped to pet Valor. "I like his eyes," Maya said. "They see everything." Drew smiled. "Yeah, they really do." Back at Meadowbrook Elementary, things had changed too. Miss Sloane's classroom now sat empty. The nameplate had been taken down. Her sunflower mug was still on the desk, but her smiley face posters had been removed. A new teacher had taken her place, one who was kind, real, and not hiding anything. Elsie Tran had returned to class. She didn't wear her hoodie up anymore. She talked a little more, and she drew a lot, especially pictures of Valor. One day, she gave Drew a red collar with a shiny silver tag. It read, "My best friend." "For him," she said quietly, handing it to Drew. He knelt down and clipped the collar onto Valor's neck. "He'll wear it proudly," he said. That afternoon, the school held a small ceremony. They renamed the school's reading corner the Valor Nook. It was filled with books about brave animals, safe adults, and trusting your instincts. Drew was asked to say a few words. He kept it short. Sometimes heroes don't wear capes, he told the students. Sometimes they walk on four legs, listen more than they speak, and protect us without needing to be asked. Later that evening, Drew sat on his porch, watching the stars come out. Valor lay beside him, chewing on an old tennis ball. It had been a long few weeks, and even though things seemed quiet now, Drew couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to come. His phone buzzed. It was Agent Morales. "We just picked up another phone call," the agent said. "Different state, same voice, same group. She had helpers, and they're still out there." Drew sighed and looked down at Valor. "You ready to go again?" he asked. Valor looked up, ears perked. That was all the answer he needed. The next week, Drew drove across town to a parent support meeting held in a local church. Some of the parents there had children who were listed in Aunt Bly's folder. They hadn't known their kids were in danger. Now they were shaken, scared, and full of questions. "How did a dog know what none of us could see?" one mother asked, her voice trembling. Drew paused, then said, "Because dogs don't lie to themselves. They don't ignore red flags. They don't tell themselves someone's smile means they're safe. They just know." The room was silent. The following Saturday, the community held a special event in the park. A group of kids had made drawings, banners, and thank you cards. One banner read, "Thank you, Valor, for saving our friends." There was a cake shaped like a dog bone, not real, of course, and kids took turns giving Valor belly rubs and treats. Drew spoke again, this time to a larger crowd. He kept one hand resting on Valor's shoulder. "I've been a cop for almost 15 years, he said. "I've seen good and bad, but nothing has made me prouder than this dog. He didn't chase down a thief. He didn't bite anyone. He just listened to his heart and trusted it. And because of that, children are safe today." The crowd clapped. Some people cried. Elsie hugged Valor tightly around the neck. That night, Drew sat on the porch again. Valor curled up beside him, tired from all the attention. "You've saved more lives than most people ever will," Drew said softly. "And all you had to do was trust your gut." Valor's eyes closed. The stars were bright above them. For now, the world was quiet. But both of them knew that if danger returned, they'd be ready. Because sometimes the only thing standing between evil and a child is a dog that refuses to back down.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Love Tales of Tales, for long, heartwarming pets and animals. Love stories that stay with you long after they end.